Now the final praising can begin. I'm John Renton with every WCW pay-per-view main event ranked from worst to best, Part 8. The final 9, the creme de la creme, and from 113 all the way to now, from the really bad to the somewhat bad to everything in between, and now to the best of the best in my opinion. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments though, because it has been really fun to talk about everything, all these matches, the varying qualities, the storylines and all that, and get into some fun rants. And now we get to exactly what I fucking love about professional wrestling. Even though part 7 was what I really loved about wrestling, I love these matches even more for a variety of reasons that I'll explain as this list goes on. Number 9, Hogan vs. Flair WCW Championship Bash at the Beach 1994. This pretty much raised the stock of WCW up way higher than they had been since Turner bought the company. Because fucking hell, Hogan was a big goddamn deal. I was really goddamn excited. I wasn't very happy with Hogan after, Mania 9. And I was like, okay, let's see what he can fucking do. Is he really going to do all that much better? And him and Flair created fucking magic. I was still surprised they never did this at Mania 8. Now, granted, Flair versus Savage at Mania 8 was a whole lot better than I think Hogan versus Flair would have been. But still, you're kind of, surprised looking back on it they didn't manage to do that. Mania 8 was also a bit of a weird goddamn mania, but I digress. A couple years later, they managed to strike gold in WCW, and it was fucking terrific. They had Shaq there, Mr. T, they had a whole bunch of people. They had Hogan's family, his wife at the time, Linda Hogan, the stupid goddamn bitch that she is, and Nick Hogan, well before he would cause any wrecks that would, basically take the life of somebody. Even though they would live on, they really wouldn't fucking live on, would they? And he wouldn't face fucking consequences because money fucking talks. But anyway, let's talk about the praise. Shaq, it was weird to see Shaq, in the infancy of his NBA career. He'd only been in there for a little bit. And big goddamn deal here. Really big goddamn deal. Because Hogan, Flair, these two titans. And Hogan actually got to pull out some stuff that he used in Japan. Like, some submission moves. Hogan actually could do some wrestling, believe it or not. He usually just did do a lot of big man stuff because that's what he was taught by Vince Sr., but then by Vince Jr., they didn't want him doing anything that could damage him and, of course, damage their bottom line because Hogan was really goddamn over. But he got to display some skills here, and Flair was right there for everything and really made Hogan look better than he had looked in a couple years. And it was fucking terrific. The crowd was on their goddamn feet. Everybody wanted to see Hogan win the championship from Flair. Even though they had the whole thing with the WCW title and the International Championship, and that had, kind of muddied the waters, Flair was still seen as the guy. He was seen as the pillar of WCW, the main guy. Hogan was the main guy up north. It was a natural match that they could do, and boy, did they capitalize on it. They made a lot of money with it. Hogan got them a lot of publicity. And Flair did the job. It was great, though, when Sherry was in the ring, and then Sherry got knocked off into Mr. T's arms, and Shivani's like, Mr. T has Sherry, and Bobby Heenan, he's kidnapping her. And I don't know why that line always makes me laugh. Probably because Bobby Heenan is just fucking gold. This match is fucking terrific, though, and even though, no, I don't really care for the racist grandpa who never apologized for what he fucking said, only that he got caught, and Flair maybe stuck around a few too many years too long. I mean, let's be honest, that at least 2008 should have been the end of his career, but no, he had to go to TNA, and oh boy, that. This was them in their prime, and, just everything had perfectly aligned. Stars, moons, every single planet, even the planet in Interstellar, that fucking piece of shit movie, everything had aligned, and Hogan and Flair created magic here. And Bobby Heenan was goddamn great, all upset that Hogan had beaten Flair because that's not fair to Flair and all that. And it was such great shit. Hogan won and held the championship for only a bit before being a transitional champion and passing it to somebody younger. Hi, kid. He held it until the following October. I don't mean October 94. I mean October 95. Because why would he put anybody else over? He's Hulk fucking Hogan. By the way, Randy Savage was always better than Hulk Hogan. So now we move on to number 8. It's Sting's Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance. War Games, Wrestle War 92. Cheat sheet time because it's hard to remember all this stuff. Because 113 matches, forgive me. Sting, Steamboat, Wyndham, Nikita, and Dustin Rhodes versus the Dangerous Alliance. That's Sting's Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance members Austin, Rude, Eaton, Arn, and Zbyszko. And this was a fucking terrific match. A lost classic in War Games lore. Lore games, if you will, which sounds like some kind of weird role-playing game that PlayStation would put on their store and then say, oh, wait, we didn't refine it. We're going to pull it, but we're not going to refund you guys. Ha! Gamer friends have told me that shit has happened. Moving on. This was a really terrific match. A great War Games match. Another great 1992 pay-per-view. Because Bill Watts knew how to do some really good wrestling, even though Watts was a bit of a piece of shit behind the scenes, if you know what I mean. Read up on it. He ain't exactly, the nicest guy in the world, but a hell of a goddamn booker. This was fucking terrific. Personal, bloody. I mean, it was physical. And Bobby Eaton ended up doing the job. Now, Eaton, it's kind of funny. He had a quiet, run of really good matches after Stan Lane and Jim Cornette left after Halloween Havoc 1990. Eaton had some pretty damn good matches and really did some damn good stuff. And he got featured in some high-profile stuff before being featured in the Blue Bloods, Earl Robert Eaton. Very unsung hero in wrestling today, in my opinion. A lot of people look back on him as being great, and they should. But I hope more fans maybe go back and watch some classic Bobby Eaton and realize just how good he was. And this even made me tolerate Larry Zbyszko at this point, who... Larry was really, really good and was involved in some big moments. I always felt like Larry thought he was better than he really was. But then again, the living legend, he took that thing from feuding with Bruno Sammartino, and it was a pretty damn good match that they had. This was fucking terrific. A great War Games. Really, really good shit. And Sting Squadron won. This would unfortunately be the end of the Dangerous Alliance because Paul Heyman would end up leaving. He would be fired. There was a hush clause. And I have a pretty good idea. Probably some, some Jewish stuff that was said. I don't know. I'm just fucking guessing. It's really unfortunate, though. But hey, he used that settlement. He used other money to fund ECW and then run ECW into the ground because he had great ideas and no way to reel them in. Do you guys know what happened with Paul Heyman and WCW? Do you know? Tell me in the comments, please. What do you think happened? What do you think led to Heyman leaving WCW? Then we get to Team WCW versus Team NWO. So, cheat sheet time again. Because one of my favorite War Games matches, but again, trying to remember all these members is a little bit ridiculous. Members. Team WCW. Arn, Sting, Flair, and Luger versus Hogan, Hall, Nash, and Sting. Because it was a fake Sting. This is War Games, Fall Brawl 1996. This, one of my favorite War Games matches of all time. I mean, really, this is just absolutely fucking wonderful. This whole build they had done on TV, and I remember watching this. I remember vividly. The Monday Night Wars, I can't say enough how great and how fun they were to watch. WCW, WWE, and when I could watch it in syndication before they got to cable, ECW. Just a great, three-headed dragon of the Monday Night Wars. And WCW had the hot hand at this point. They had the NWO, and Sting had attacked Luger in the rain. Literally, they attacked him in the rain, but it was a fake Sting. It was Jeff Farmer, who, if you look at him, just from that point, he looked like Sting. He couldn't yell like Sting. He couldn't really wrestle like him, but you just looked at him, you're like, that's close enough. That really is. I mean, it fooled me, because I'm like, why is Sting doing this? But then I'm like, wait a second, Sting wouldn't do that. Even though he'd, let his hair grow out from being blonde and gotten, it to where it was dark, I go, no way. There's no way he would do that. So that was just before the pay-per-view. And then Sting shows up and he's trying to talk to Arn, Flair, and Luger. They're backstage and everything, and they don't know what's going to happen. And Sting shows up, but his back is to the camera. It was perfectly told. And he's like, okay, well, fine, whatever. You guys don't believe me, that's fine. And they built this whole thing up. It was Arn, Hall, it was Nash, it was Hogan. And then it was, Luger and Flair and that kind of stuff. So it was all that. And then the fake Sting. And I get goosebumps just thinking about it, so forgive me. And I think I retro-reviewed this at one point. If I didn't, I will retro-review it later in the year. But they do this big goddamn deal, fake Sting comes out, the crowd's deflated. Now the crowd knows. The crowd can tell we want Sting, because when he couldn't do the woo, they knew it wasn't. And even though he was in good physical shape, and still apparently did pretty damn well in Japan, and that's great for the guy. He made a hell of a career off of being, the fake Sting, but making it work for him. And he's doing this, and the crowd's chanting, we want Sting, and the crowd, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then Sting shows up. Just, he, runs down. Crowd goes nuts. It's like he was telling the truth. Commentary goes nuts. The crowd goes insane. He's just beating everybody. He beating up the entire NWO. Just lays them all out. Is that good enough for you right there? Is that good enough for you? Does this, the whole you can stick it, leaves. And then WCW gets destroyed. Luger ends up surrendering in a double submission. And then he's trying to crawl. Stinger, this kind of stuff. Because, they were friends. And still are friends, I imagine. But for the TV show and just that whole thing where, oh, what the fuck's going on? And then Sting would become the Crow Sting. It was the perfect catalyst to Sting becoming the guy to beat Hogan at Starrcade 97 and them fucking that up. And I'm not going to get into it. You can check it out on the first or second video I did. But of this list, but goddamn, it's just so fucking revolting. And they managed to screw that up. But this was a great goddamn war game. So fucking good. We then get to number 6, The Outsiders versus Savage, Sting, and Luger. The Outsiders were Hall and Nash. Hostile takeover match. Bash at the Beach 1996. Big goddamn deal. What the fuck's going to happen? Who's the third man? Hall and Nash say, Hall's like, he's here and he's ready. Luger gets taken out a little bit into the match. Oh no, what the hell's going on? Now it's down to Savage and Sting. And Hall and Nash are beating them up and everything, and they're getting some, brief bursts and stuff like that. But then they get cut off. It's like, oh no, Savage gets tagged. And he's like, he gets knocked down by Nash. So everybody's laying down. Hogan comes down. And, okay, I'm going to say right now, before I get into that you could argue that the work in this match, it shouldn't even be top 25. And it's not that it's a badly worked match, but it's a story. It's kind of like the same as the WCW versus Team NWO stuff. It's about story. And it was a terrific story. Hogan comes down. Leg drop on Savage. The crowd throws. There are some people that are happy because they wanted to see Hogan turn heel. I wanted to see Hogan turn heel. I didn't think it would happen. And the crowd starts hurling shit. There's a guy that tries to get in the ring. He gets stepped on and stomped down, which is what should have happened. I hope the guy was, freaking, damaged because of trying to do that. The fucking idiot trying to run the goddamn ring. But that proves how much anger that they had. Trash being thrown in the ring and Hogan cutting the promo. If that isn't the promo of Hogan's career, I don't know what is. Really, I don't know what is. If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, you people wouldn't be here. And, of course, Hogan telling us right then that he was racist, but, nobody wanted to believe him. And just all that, and I covered this in a retro review, but just all this shit. Just Hogan, Mean Gene, upset at him, all this crap in the ring represents these fans out here, just all this stuff. The match, the aftermath, it was fucking terrific, and is the number 6 match on my favorite matches, it's my number 6 favorite WCW pay-per-view main event match. For story, the work was good too, but the story is really what sold it. Number 5, Ric Flair versus Harley Race steel cage match. Gene Knitsky as the special guest referee. NWA Championship match. Starrcade 83. Flair for the gold. Okay, this one hasn't aged well. I admit that. It hasn't. We're coming up on almost 40 years. In a couple of years, it's going to be 40 years. And you could argue that this main event has not aged all that well. And you could say that about quite a few of the early 80s, mid 80s, WCW, well, in general, any of these, big closed circuit events, you could argue that they don't age all that well. But it was a big deal because Race could have gone to Vince. He could have. He didn't because Harley Race is a stand-up individual and was there for Flair. Put over Flair properly. Knitsky, my only issue with putting this above 5, and I almost put this out of my top 10, Knitsky, former NWA champion of 3 years. World-class athlete, 100%. He treated it so much like an actual match instead of a cage match and letting the guys kind of go at it, that at times it made sense and at times he was almost ruining it. And you'll know what I mean if you've seen it. If you've seen it, let me know if you agree, because it almost feels like it kind of, halted it a little bit. But that being said, it was still great to see Flair beat Harley Race. And then there was, of course, a thing where they switched it back to Harley Race. But it was an unrecognized reign sometime, I think, in March or April of 84, but only for a little bit. So Harley Race is the 8-time world champion. Much like Flair is like a 20 or 22-time world champion, because all the switches in Puerto Rico, they didn't fucking count, because Puerto Rico, bit of a weird place for wrestling, because those fans really took shit seriously, just like the bookers took things seriously, like killing Bruiser Brody, Carlos Colon, Jose Gonzalez. I hope they rot in hell for what they did. But as for Flair and Race, they told a great goddamn story here. Flair being the not even the upstart, because he had been built for quite a while. Like, you think about it, he started in what, 72? He wanted to be Dusty's brother, and then he had that plane accident, and he got back in the ring, had to change up his style, do more technical stuff instead of brawling, and he got the shot finally. Now, he had been champion before, but this was a big goddamn deal happening in Greensboro. Everybody was just absolutely insane. Closed circuit numbers were insane, and it was a perfect storm of Ric Flair beating Harley Race. It was fucking terrific stuff. Now, we move on to number 4, Flair versus Dusty, NWA Championship, Starrcade 1985. Okay, much better, much better than their match at Starrcade 84. There was a guy going, woo, woo, woo. It sounds like he was being goosed, or had a proctology exam happening during the whole goddamn thing. Or he just really liked the word woo. Maybe it was Jerry Lewis. Who the fuck knows? Jerry Lee Lewis, probably. Maybe it was a goddamn owl that was confused on how to say things. Who the fuck knows? The whole point is, this is a fucking terrific match. Dusty and Flair had a great goddamn, bit of business that they carried on for a number of years. I don't know if they were each other's best rivalry, though. It was a natural rivalry because Dusty was the booker, Flair was the main guy, and he had worked there a lot longer for Crockett, and there was always that chemistry, but there was always that rivalry. They worked so well together, though. They did some really damn good shit, and what I loved about this is that it wasn't stopped because of blood loss, like 1984. It was allowed to play out, and sure, there was a Dusty finish and stuff like that, and the extra ref, and Dusty won, but then had to give the championship back, and then wouldn't win it until 86. Sometime in 86, I think during the Great American Bash Tour in 86, I believe. But Flair and Dusty had a great goddamn match here, and it was fucking great. The crowd was insane. I absolutely have to put this in the top 5 because it more than made up for the 1984 match. Then we get to number 3, Flair versus Steamboat, NWA Championship Chi-Town Rumble 1989. So you have to wonder what the hell's ranked above this. This was fucking terrific. If the Wrestle War 89 match had been the main event, I would have put that one probably in the top 10 as well, because it was fucking terrific. Had their 2 out of 3 falls match not happened on a Clash of Champions and happened on a pay-per-view, I would have put that there. Probably at number 1, because that was also terrific. But this was goddamn great. It was Flair and Steamboat, who had feuded all the way back in the mid-70s over the TV or the U.S. Championship, had great chemistry for years and years and years, faced off at Boogie Jam 1984, just before Steamboat would leave to go to the WWE. And they would just have this great goddamn bit of chemistry. Steamboat semi-retired, actually, and came back to face Flair specifically. The only good thing that George Scott did in his brief return to the NWA was help out the brand by bringing in Steamboat, and it was great shit. It was really good shit. And Steamboat, the perennial babyface, really, really great chemistry with Flair, the chops, everything. They could do a match almost blindfolded. That's how good they were. That's how well they knew each other, because they wrestled so many goddamn times on house shows there, but also, again, referencing back to the 70s, the early 80s, the chemistry that they had. Steamboat and Flair, I think Flair was Steamboat's best rival, bar none. I don't think anybody comes close, in my personal opinion. This was just great goddamn shit. It would be really hard to do a Flair's best rivalries list. I may do that at some point. But this was fucking terrific. It seemed like Steamboat was going to lose, and then suddenly, inside cradle, 1, 2, 3, Teddy Long counting it, because I think Tommy Young went down. He was, laid out. And then Teddy Long got in there, 1, 2, 3, and there was a Chicago Bear in the front row that was a big Ric Flair fan that was all shocked, when Steamboat lost, or when Steamboat won, that is. He's like, what the fuck? And Steamboat didn't have the best run with the championship. I mean, he had premier matches, Clash of Champions, and then when he lost it. But it's just unfortunate it was during a down period in WCW, where George Scott had pretty much nuked the whole goddamn thing, even though house shows and stuff like that were already on the decline. This was a terrific match, though, and my 3rd favorite of all time, my 2nd favorite, Flair vs. Sting, NWA Championship, Great American Bash, 1990. Okay, Sting finally winning the NWA Championship with an inside cradle and doing some great shit here and coming back from the ACL injury well ahead of schedule. Really fucking good shit. Really good shit. Great American Bash 1990 wasn't the best pay-per-view, but a lot of people wanted to see Sting win it, and Sting finally winning it and winning the big championship. this big celebration. The dudes with attitudes. What was it? The Steiners, the Junkyard Dog, and Paul Orndorff, I believe. They were there to stop. And then Elegante was handcuffed to Ole Anderson, which, knowing how Ole feels about minorities, must have really fucking appealed to Ole. That must have been fucking great. I mean, Elegante probably could have just chopped him once, and with how Ole was at that point. But it was just great. The Horsemen were running down there, and then Flair targeted the leg. Flair got a lot out of Sting, as he always did. And even though, yes, the match wasn't as good as it would have been at Wrestle War because Sting was coming back from the injury, but also because they wanted to see him win the title at Wrestle War. They were happy to see him win at Great American Bash. But after, a lot of damage was done to the company, you could see that it was almost muted. And then they finished off any potential momentum by having the Black Scorpion feud happen. Great goddamn job there. This was a great fucking match, really. It really was. It was goddamn magic, even if it would have been better at Wrestle War 90. Still great to see Sting win his first major singles championship. The TV championship was still hot, but this is the title he needed to win, and it was great to see him do it. Number 1, Flair versus Terry Funk, Great American Bash, 1989. 1989 Great American Bash, considered one of the best pay-per-views of all time. Now, I don't know if I necessarily agree. As far as main events and as far as big matches, absolutely. Now, maybe I'll have to go back and watch it at some point and have more of an appreciation for it. But I remember enjoying it and enjoying the good stuff way more than, like thinking the bad stuff was absolute shit. But this was the match that got people talking. Like, people wanted to see Flair get his revenge on Funk after Funk had laid out Flair at Wrestle War 89, pile driving him on the table, the neck injury, all that. What the fuck's going to happen? Flair ends up coming back. He says even if it takes him a year, he comes back. It really did some great business, and everybody fucking loved it. And Flair beating Funk, it was great shit. And then you had Muta and Sting. You had all this stuff happening because they had an earlier dispute over the TV championship that would end up getting held up. This was exactly how you do a main event. Funk was still, even though he'd been retired a few times, Funk did some really good shit. He would always be able to, he was crazy, but he could do a lot of great shit with Flair, and Flair could do a lot of great shit with Funk. The rivalry was fucking great. It's a shame, actually, it got cut short at, I believe it was New York Knockout in November 1989 Clash of Champions, because it could have gone on for a number of months. It could have gone on longer, in my opinion. You could have even had Funk win the NWA Championship again at that point. I don't know how that would have worked, but still, fucking great shit. I fucking love this match. My favorite WCW pay-per-view match of all time. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.